Hi everyone, today I'll be going over the Essential 2 workshop. This is part 1. We'll be going over content creation. Part 2 is going to be a separate video and that's going to go over the discussion board and how to create threads in that section. So once we're all logged into Blackboard, let's go into our practice course. That might be your master course or that may be a live course for you. I'm going to go into my practice course. And we're going to be focusing our attention to a content area. So that's going to be, there should be one already made in your course, which should be named content. But if you want to create a new one, you can definitely click on content area and create it on the menu panel. And I went over how to do that in the first workshop. So if you want to refresh on that, you can watch it there. And if you're going to be working on it actively, just to go along with this video, I would suggest to hide it so that your students aren't seeing what you're adding to this area. So when you click on your content area, if you created a new one, it's going to be empty, or if you haven't added anything at all. And we're going to be focusing on these buttons right here, but mainly on the build content one. And I'm going to show you how to build an item, how to build a file, how to build a content folder, and I'll be going over features like how to add videos, images, web links, and some of these mashup features as well. These ones at the bottom, oops, at the bottom, these are all about, these are all from publishers. So unless you work with any of these publishers, I really wouldn't bother with these. And then here's just about how to add a syllabus. There's already a pre-made item for how to add a syllabus, or you have a lesson plan that's already pre-made, and it helps you out a bit for how to do these kind of items. But I do not go over these in specifics just because they're not very widely used. Mainly you want to be using the item or file tabs here. But before I show you how to build an item or file, let's first build a content folder. And I would just say it's best practice if you keep everything organized for your students. So let's build a week 1 folder. And if you want to have some kind of description for your folder, you definitely can. But I don't want to do that for now. And here are just standard options. So you're going to see these standard options appear on item, on file, on a bunch of the other items that we'll be creating today. And they're all the same. They all say permit users to view this content. I would say just keep it at yes. That way your students always have access to it. This track number of views. If you click on yes, it's going to start generating a report for you indicating how many clicks this item has received and how often or frequently your students are clicking on this item. If you do not want that kind of report to appear for you, then you would just click no. It's already set to no by default. And if you want to add some kind of day restrictions, if you build all your content ahead of time and you want your students to only focus on your earlier material like your weeks 1 and 2, but you want all the other weeks to be hidden, then I would utilize this date and time restrictions. And I'm going to click submit. And once you go in here, it's going to be empty and it's going to have the same principles as the content area. I want to let you guys know that with our online courses, we do have everything organized. So within we use unit folders as opposed to weekly folders. In each unit folder, there'll be 2 other folders within there. And one is for reading and resources, and that's going to have PowerPoints, articles, YouTube videos that your students should reference to learn better about the material that they're learning. And then they have a second folder that has all of their assignments. So that's discussions for the discussion boards. That's any writing assignments that they might have. And if you have any kind of tests or quizzes, they would put it under the assignment folder. And that just lets them distinguish, this is where I need to learn everything, and this is all the material that I need to do all the assignments. And that just keeps everything better organized for your students. And I feel like that's very good practice. And the reason we want to do everything in folders is because if you do not have folders, I'm going to show you how my practice area looks. You're going to have a cluster of different things. So I have videos, I have files, I have what this is a website link, and it's all going to become a very long scrolling process, and having to find different files when there's a lot to go through can be hard. But before we go back into the new contents area, I want to show you the difference between an item and a file. So here in my item, I've put a description of what each of them have to offer. So an item, which is this item, you can give it a title. So I've given it a title here. You can write some kind of description like I've done here. And you can attach a file, as you can see right here. And then you could put viewing restrictions. And with a file, which you can find below, which is this is a file. And you can distinguish the both by the little icon. So this one has a picture and text, and this one just has text. A file, you could just give it a name and you can attach a file, but you cannot add, this description, or you cannot attach multiple files, and you can give it a viewing restriction only. So you're very limited with what you can do with the file, and you have more possibilities with that of an item. So let's go back to our new content area. Let's go into our folder, and I'm going to create an item and show you what you can do with an item. So here, an item, I'm gonna put what there is to learn in week 1. And here I could put some kind of description of, what they're gonna be learning. If, let's say this was a history class, we're gonna be learning about the Cold War, and I would put some kind of useful informations for them to know what their learning goals are and stuff like that. I would write that here in the text box. So for my week 1, I'm going to write I'm just going to write all the material needed for this week will be found within the folder. That's what I want to write there. And let's say I want to let them know that they should head on to the Gradable website. Let's say that's the website I want them to have to reference for some reason. I can add it one of two ways. So I could go to the website, copy the link, go back to Blackboard and paste it. Now to paste it, I'm going to do it like this, but you're going to see it's going to give me an error message. It just wants you to use the keyboard shortcuts to do it instead. So that's what I'm going to do here. And that's one way of adding it. So just in case you ever do have a student that uses a screen reader, best practice would be to add a screen tip. And to do that, you're going to highlight the text, which is the URL. You're going to click on this button over here within the toolbox, and it looks like a chain. And when you hover over it, it says insert/edit link. We're going to click on that. A new window will appear. And if you've done it correctly, you're going to see the URL appears here, but I, for some reason, did not do it correctly. So we're going to highlight this once again, and I'm going to click on this, and you see now that URL appeared automatically. And I'm going to give this a title. So I've already written it before, so Gradable website, but you can manually write it yourself. And then target is always going to be set to open in this window, and you do not want to do that because the website might not open properly, it might look distorted, and it's just best practice if you click on open in a new window. But for now, I'm going to keep it open in this window so that you can see how that may distort the way the website opens. And you're gonna set update. And you can see there's a warning here. This website link may not display correctly to others unless opened in a new window. And it's asking if you want to change it. But I'm gonna show you how it looks if you open it in this window and how you open it in another window. I'm just gonna click OK. And then, so now when I hover over this, you see this new text box appears, and that's a screen tip. And that's if a student has a screen reader, instead of their screen reader reading them the website as HTTPS and so on, it's going to read it as Gradable University website. And this might look a little, I want to say it looks a little ugly on my part. So if I want it to look better for my students, if I'm referring to this website in a sentence, let's say I'm saying, please visit the Gradable I'm letting my students know that they should visit the Gradable website for more information, and I'm going to highlight Gradable website. And when I highlight this, I'm going to go to the toolbar and click on that chain button again. And then here in the link path, I'm going to put the website. And you saw that when I did that, this is because these are websites that I've, before this workshop, I've added a couple of websites before. So your website might not appear here, so you would just paste that. And you don't necessarily need to give it a screen tip anymore because already the words are the title of the website. But if you want to, you could also give it a screen tip once again. And we're going to set this one to open in a new window. I'm going to click Insert. Okay. And I'm going to click Submit, and I'm going to show you how those websites are going to appear now. So this is gradable.edu. So now when I click on this, it's going to open like this because I put that I wanted it to open within Blackboard. And this is the error window that appears on everyone's end, your student's end and on your end, because it was not able to open properly. So then your students have to go this extra step and click on that link that appears there. If you want to skip this view in its entirety, then you want to open it in a new window, and it's going to just open a new tab for them, and they're going to see the website as it should be seen. So that's two ways of adding a URL link to an item. So besides adding URL links like that, you could also add a website link as its own separate thing. And I'm going to just add the Gradable website again. And I'm going to name it Gradable University website. And if I want to add some kind of like text description to my students, let's say go here for more information about Gradable University. Or if I want them to know that why this is a helpful link for them, I could write that here. And then you could also attach a file if you want. If this link, let's say they should also, go to this website but also read some kind of article. If this is not a link to an article per se, then I could add an attachment, and I would leave it as opening a new window so that there's no problems with accessing the website, and you have the standard options as always. And you click Submit. And you can see now that I have here, it says Gradable University website, and this little icon indicates that this is a web link, and I have my description here. And when students click on it, it takes them to the website with no problem. So besides adding a website, we could do other things. So let's do another one. And in this item, we're going to add an image, one from our own desktop, and then one from Mashup. And then we're going to add a video, and we're going to see how the different ways that you can add a video. So I'm going to name this image and YouTube video. So let's add an image that we already have saved on our desktop. And I'm going to browse my computer when this new window appears. And I'm going to click on this image I have saved. And now the image is right here. And the title is what the students are going to be able to see. So I'll be very descriptive with how I with my titles. So I'm going to say this is a classroom with a chalkboard. And I could write my descriptions to be the same. So I'm just gonna select all it and copy and paste it over here. And I'm going to insert this image. And as you can see, when I hover over it, I get that screen tip for this image. And it's good practice to always add that so that your students know why this image is being referred to or why it's important. So that's an image that we added from our desktop. If I want to add an image from Mashup, I'm going to click on Mashup and now click on Flickr Photo. And I'm going to keep the classroom as a theme. And click go to search. Okay, and this is going to show me a couple of different options that it has for classroom. And I'm just going to click on this one, but if you want to preview to have a better look, you can definitely do that. I'm going to select this image, and there's two ways that this image can appear. It can appear as a thumbnail, and a thumbnail is going to look like this, or you could do an embedded photo. And if you want a better view of how that would look, there's a preview option right here. And when I click on preview, this is how the embedded photo is going to look. The title is going to be on top of the picture, and it's going to give me copyright information. And we want to make sure that we do not delete this, just because we want to give proper credit to where we're getting this image from. I would say you could show the Flickr URL, making sure this stays there just in case students want a better view of it, if they want to make it bigger. And if it's a thumbnail, it's going to look like this, but let me just show you how big that would look. It stays relatively the same size as before. So let's go back. And I'm going to keep it as I say best practice would be keeping it as an embedded photo, just because it makes it the actual size of what the photo would be, and it's easier to see. And I'm going to submit. As you can see here, I have that photo there with this information displayed. And that's two ways of adding an image. And now below, I'm going to add a video. So you could also do a video that you have saved on your hard drive, the same way that we added an image, but just for being practical, a lot of our videos come from YouTube anyways. So in the Flickr option, you're going to click on YouTube, and I'm going to stay with the classroom theme, and I'm going to use a search word. So when you're searching for a YouTube video, you cannot search a URL. It has to be a keyword or just some phrasing from the title. Animals. Just to see what kind of videos appear there. I'm going to click on this BBC Earth video. Okay, and it already has the title in the name section for you. You could keep that the same. I would say don't change that name. And like I said, you have a couple of options. I would say with keep a thumbnail or an embedded video. And I'm going to show you how those both look. So a thumbnail, like I said, is going to look like this. Or you could do an embedded video, and then that's going to be a bit bigger, and I'm going to show you in the preview section. You see it's a pretty big window for the video to play in, and your students are able to click on it right away and play it from there, and it starts playing within that area. It starts playing within that area. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to click a thumbnail, and then I'll show you how a thumbnail plays. And I want to show the YouTube video here, so I'm going to click submit, and you see that this is how it appears, just how an image would have appeared. And I'm going to click submit for this section right here. Okay, and as you can see, when we scroll down, I have my picture here with the little screen tip. I have this picture from Flickr with the title there, and the credits that where we got this image from, and then this is the YouTube video. And it has, all the information that's needed, the title of the video and the URL link if the students want to open this in a new window. But if I click on watch video, it's going to open this smaller window, and your students can click play and watch it from within Blackboard. And it's just good practice if with videos that you're adding, to make sure that they have closed captioning, because some students do prefer having closed captioning just so they could also read along with what's going on the videos that they're watching. And also for any students that are hard of hearing, having closed caption is the best thing to do. So besides those things, let's go over how to add an attachment. You're able to select where it appears, the attachments. So like I said, we're gonna first do this through this method, which is the attachment method right here, which is under the text box. You could just click on a file that you already have, and you could just drag and drop, and it has to be within, you see those dash marks, it has to be within the dash marks, and this will turn purple, meaning you're good to go for the add, drag and drop, and the file appears there. Or depending on where you want to reference this article, I'm gonna make some space here, and I'm gonna let my students know, please read the following. And I'm gonna click on this little paperclip icon to insert a file. I'm gonna browse my computer, and I'm gonna click on demo file, and you want to give it an alternative text, an alt text right here. So I'm gonna name it week 1 document, and I'm gonna have it set to open in a new window as yes, and I'm going to submit. So when I click submit to save all my changes, now when I scroll down, you see here the attachment is attached here, and this is the first method we did that had the attachment file underneath the text box. But if we attach it within the text box, if I scroll down right here, it's referenced in between the video and the picture, where I had selected for it to go with the words that I want. So if I wanted to keep on writing on this end, I could have kept on writing over here about some other kind of information. And the file is, downloadable either way. It downloads like that, or it downloads like that. One thing we haven't done is the file. So we're going to see the difference between what a file is and the item. So with the item, we've been working on an item in all our previous examples. So with the file, you see that we're lacking that text box to write descriptions and stuff. It's just we have to give it a name. So we're going to browse our computer, and I'm going to click a PDF to show you how that looks. Gmail PDF. And I want this to open in a new window. And I'm going to leave everything else the same. Okay, and I'm going to make another file so that you can see that if it's not a PDF, it's not going to open the same way. And I'm going to browse my computer, and I'm going to use this demo, and it is a Word doc. I'm going to open it in open a new window, or not. When it's not a PDF, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to click Save. So now when we scroll down, this PDF, I'm going to click on it, and it opens a preview of the PDF. And if I want to download it, I could do so here, or if I want to print it, that's great. And that's how the PDF opens. But you're going to see when I click on a Word document, it just downloaded. It doesn't show me a preview. It just downloads automatically. Let's go back to our Week 1 folder. And as you can see, there are a lot of capabilities that you could do within an item that you cannot do within a file. But like I'm saying, if you're gonna have a PowerPoint where all the information's already there, you might want to do it as a file because it's easily downloadable for them, like the PDF was. And if you want to be more descriptive with certain article, if you want to attach the article and you want to give them a description or some kind of questions they should think about while they're reading the article, do it as an item, and that way you could write it everything here and have the file attached as well. And then so that's everything that covers everything within this section. Okay, so the last section that I want to go over is this partnered content tab. And if you're working with a publisher, then this is where you should be able to link that material to your course. You want to go to the content market area, and here you're going to see the publishers that we have partnered with, who we have linked with our Blackboard. And these are just some of those partners that we have. If you do not see your partnered content here, it might be because we don't have them linked yet. But if you do want to have them linked in Blackboard, you're gonna have to direct that sales contact to us so that we're able to integrate it with Blackboard like we have with these other providers. So let's say if you have a partnership with Cengage, and that's how you're going to be teaching your material, your textbooks and lessons, and coursework is going to be through Cengage. You can definitely link it to your Blackboard, and you would just click on Cengage. And I cannot show you to an extent how that would look, just because I'm not partnered with Cengage. These are some of the books that have been used in the university, but you would be able to find the book that you're using and you click on it, and this should open a new window to the website, and it'll show you exactly how to add that content. So because I don't have any licensing with them, I haven't paid for these services, I cannot show you those extra steps. But the salesperson that you have been in contact with for that publishing company, they should give you some kind of step-by-step guide of how to do that, because they are also updating quite frequently, just how Blackboard is updating, so they'll have the most up-to-date steps to how to add your content to Blackboard. So when you're adding the content, you can add the different chapters, you can add assignments or tests, and those assignments and tests, although they get graded on the publisher's website, you could have it so that it gets linked to your grade center. And like I said, that's something that the publisher is going to have to give you information on, because I cannot show you how to do that because I have not purchased any access to any of these different textbooks here. But like I said, these are some of the partnered contents that we have available to be used with Blackboard. As I mentioned before, if there is a partnered content that you're working with that you do not see here, direct them to us so that we can have them integrated with Blackboard. You have to make sure that any partner contact that you are using in your class has to get approved by your department, because your students are also purchasing the licensing to use their online resources or to buy their textbooks. We're going to mainly focus on the discussion board, which you should have on your menu panel. If you have not created a discussion board in your menu panel, definitely click this plus sign and you could add a tool link. If you don't remember how to go through that step, definitely watch the first workshop for the Essential One, where I do explain how to do that in detail. So let's click on to discussion. And you're going to see here I already have a couple of discussion forums built that I'm going to show you the difference between a graded forum and a graded thread, and you can also have a forum without it being graded. So there's a couple of words that you're going to have to know in a specific, and it's going to be what's a discussion forum, the discussion thread, and then there's also the replies. So these are just different things that are done within a discussion board. So discussion forums, only you as the instructor can create a forum. Your students are able to create a thread if you allow them to, for the most part. That's how graded forums work, is by your students creating a thread of their own. And then a graded thread, the way that works is you create the initial thread and your students are just replying to that single thread. And I'll show you how all of that looks. But right now, I want to show you the edit page for creating a forum. So let's click on create a forum. Okay, so with the names of your forums, I would say keep it something short and sweet, and something that's also meaningful for the title of the forum. So let's say this is a unit 1. I'm gonna name it DQ for discussion question. And then if you want, you could write the rest of the question here, or you could write the question down here, however you see fit. Just keep in mind that in your grade center, you're going to be able to see that only the name of the discussion. So the shorter it is, the better it's going to look in your grade center. So I would put the question perhaps in the description. So I'm going to write as my question, tell me about yourself. And in a lot of the online courses that are taught, one of the first discussion questions is, introduce yourself to the class. Just because it is an online course, no one ever meets face to face. So having the first question be, tell me about yourself, introduce yourself, that's a very good initial discussion forum. So when you're all done writing the question or the information that they need to know for the initial first forum, you could scroll down. And here we have availability. So this is just like when we were creating items. You could have date and time restrictions if you only want this forum question to be available during the week that it pertains to, or until it's no longer necessary. You could set those restrictions there, and I would leave available to yes, so that there's never any conflict with your students being able to access this. So for viewing thread and replies, there's two options. The standard view means that your students are able to create threads, and there's no restriction as to if they're able to read anyone else's replies to or threads that they've created. And then these participants must create a thread in order to view other threads in the forum. This means that your students are only going to be able to see the name and the question that you pose for them to answer. and before they can see anyone else's reply, they need to first make their own reply. And then if, let's say, 10 other students have replied before that one student decides to make a contribution to the thread, then they won't see the first 10 responses. That way, it kind of makes it so that the students have to come up with their own original responses, as opposed to reading through a couple of threads that other students have put in and perhaps copying or just following along with what one of the other students said and saying, yeah, I feel that, let's say, Sarah made a good point, and I strongly believe in what she's stating here. That way they're not just hopping onto someone else's bandwagon. They kind of have to create their own thoughts. Although it might be similar to what some other students said, that it's pretty original what they're saying if you pick this second option. But for now, I'm going to leave it to a standard view. And then here we have a couple of options. So no grading in forum. This option, a lot of people like to choose it if it's something like the introduction forum that I'm explaining, where students are just kind of getting to know one another. That's a very popular forum for not to get graded. Another forum type that's really common would be, sometimes some professors find it that it's good to have a forum just so the students can ask questions if they're ever not understanding something in class. Perhaps they could have a forum where students can ask all their questions. That way, you as a professor aren't bombarded with the same questions over and over by different students. This is the one place where students can ask, that one question. If another student also has that same question, you can reply and let everyone know what that response would be. Or perhaps another student already asked and knows the answer, so another student can reply and let everyone else know what that answer would be. This second option is to make the discussion forum, gradable. And I would say it's good practice to just set this to 100. I know some people like to set this to probably 5 points or 10 points or 20 points, depending on how they divide their discussion point systems. But I would say sometimes one forgets that they gave a forum a 5 point grading system, and they end up grading out of 100 just out of habit. So to not have any kind of mix-ups with your grade center, I would say I would recommend to grade out of 100 just to make it easier on your end when it comes time to grading stuff. And then we have this other option, which is grade threads, and then you see this pop up here. And this type of form requires a specific set of options enabled, and those options were set for you. And that means that it turns off this setting, which says allow members to create new threads was turned off. That means that your students will not be able to create a new thread, and I'll show you how that looks. So for this kind of forum, you'll have to make that first initial thread, and then your students will have to reply to it in order to get graded. Right now I'm going to put it as a no grading. And these are some other options, subscription options. These are all pre-set for you as it is. So allow members to subscribe to a forum. I would leave that as is, or you could not let them subscribe, or you could just allow them to subscribe to the threads instead of the forum. If they want to include links to a post, they can do that as well. And then here in the create and edit, if you want to allow your students to post anonymously, you can do that. If you do enable this anonymous posting, you wouldn't be able to necessarily grade their responses because it's anonymous. You wouldn't know who that grade would go to. Allow author to delete their own posts. Again, if you want to enable this, that means that your students can go right ahead and delete their post. And I don't think that's a good idea to enable, just because if a student does by mistake click delete or something happens, it's rather to just have it permanently saved once they've submitted something. If you want your students to be able to edit after publishing, that's totally up to you. But let's say if you did enable this participants must create a thread in order to see others. If that's enabled and you then let this be enabled, that means that they can then read what someone else wrote and then change what their initial thoughts were. And that's totally up to you if you want to give your students that kind of freedom to make these kind of deletes and edits. And then there's this one which was disabled because I had clicked gray thread, but this is usually enabled, and it says let members create new threads, and that's usually enabled for this grade discussion forum option. But it's up to you if you just want everything to be under one thread and that's how you want to grade everyone. Totally up to you. Allow files to be attached to the responses that your students make, and allow students to reply with quotes. And then this additional option just allows if they want to tag another individual in one of their threads, or if they want to rate out of like a 5-star post rating, they can do that. Those are additional optional things that are not necessary. So I'm going to click submit, and you see right here, this is my discussion forum, and right now there's nothing here. No one's submitted anything to this forum. I've just created it, but I'm going to go back to my discussion board, and as you can see here, I have a couple of responses that I've already preset so that I could show you how these work. So let's go to a graded forum. In a graded forum, I had replied to with my preview user, I made a response, and I said test hello, and this is how students would see things. You know, they would get the initial, let's go back, whoops, let's go back. They get this initial, forum name, and then if there's a description, they'll be able to see it here. If it's a very big description, this would expand longer to show exactly what the whole description says. But since mine is not that long, it's very short, it stays like that. And then once they go in with that information in their heads, they'll be able to create a new thread, and their responses would be one underneath another, and you would have to click into this to be able to read their full response. And then let me show you the thread. So the thread's a little different. I'm seeing my question here, and I'm gonna click here, and I had to create, as the instructor for this course, this is my account, I had to create a thread, and then my students could only reply, and these are the replies that were made. And then you could reply to your own students right here, and this kind of reply means that your other students in the course are also able to see what you're saying to this one individual's comment. So setting wise, I'm going to show you what I did here, and it's not that much different. I just put the grade discussion forum. I put 100 points possible. If you want, you could put a due date. I put a due date. Here in the show participants, it needs grading status. If you want to be very active, very actively looking at what your students are doing in the forum, I would say keep it at 1. But if you don't want to be reminded quite so often that your students are replying a lot, I would say keep it to 3 or 5. That way every 5 posts or every 3 posts, you'll get a new notification saying there's something in your needs graded box. And in every of their settings, I kept it the same. And for the thread, it's just that one little box that I checked off right here. But here's the difference with that. Once I go into my graded thread, and I've created this thread as it is already, I can well, let me not edit. I'm going to create a new thread so you can see. I'm going to name it part 2. Tell me more. And here are my grading settings for this thread, because I'm doing a graded thread. And I'm going to put grade thread, possible points, and I'll put 100. If you want to set a due date, you could definitely set a due date, and you could set how often you want to be reminded that there's a new post. And if you want to add a rubric that you've made on Blackboard, you can definitely do that by adding here. And I'm going to click submit to save those thread options. And you see a total of 1 post because I'm the one who made that thread. It's only my post, which says tell me more. So I'm going to show you how this looks like as a student when they go into a student mode. I'm going to go into my student preview mode. And I'm going to go to my discussion board. And I'm going to go into my graded thread because there's a part 2 here. And you see, as a student, I don't have that create a thread option. I just have a subscribe option. And I can only reply. I could quote, I could email, but reply is how your students would contribute to this. And I'm going to write a simple reply. And then here is my response to that. This is a graded thread. And then a graded forum, I've already made a submission, but if I want to, I can make another submission, and I could click on the grade thread option to make another thread here. And then to see that reply, this is the name of my thread. As a student, I'm going to be able to see my thread, and if I was so let me click on someone else's thread actually. I'm going to go to graded forum. I'm going to click on this OE build because I haven't read their response yet. And this is a new thread. This is their reply, their response. And I'm going to reply, that's cool. Because I'm just replying to what they had stated in their own thread, so that you could see that your students are able to interact with one another. And they'll be able to see of replying, they could continue talking and discussing whatever topic it is that they're having through the reply section here. And at least with the forums, if you have 25 students or something, you're going to see that these threads, it's going to be a very long list of threads. So what you can do, instead of having to click one by one and reading all the information that's there, you can click on this button which selects all of these, and you could click on the collect button. And even as a student, I'm able to do this, but even as an instructor, you're able to do this as well. You're able to see everyone's thread, at least their initial post. As you can see here, this is a new thread. I'm not seeing that comment that was made. I'm just seeing their initial first response. So I'm gonna exit, and just because I want to show you how this looks in the grading center, I'm gonna keep preview user and all data. So your students have made they've participated in the threads. So now you want to grade them. You're gonna go down, and I would say just go to needs grading. When you go to your control panel, you're gonna click on grade center, and right underneath it you should see the needs grading option. If you click there, you're gonna be able to see everything. Every type of assignment or tests or discussions that can be graded are going to appear here, and you could just see the users, which users you're going to be grading, and the items that they created here. So I'm going to go my first user attempt. You will click on their name to see their attempt, and then you're able to see let me see, you're able to see what they've done. And I have 3 responses, and I have, this is my thread, which is new user, and which is this is the comment that I've made, and this is a new thread that I made, and this is another new thread that I made. And if you reply here, this is going to reply directly to that forum so that everyone in your class will see. But if you don't want, if you just want to give them like individual feedback, you could do it here. And when your students go to check their grades, they're able to see that they have a private feedback from you, and you could put their grade in here once you're done reading through their responses. And then once you're done grading, you could just click on this arrow and go into your next user. So this is for my other thread, which is to tell me about what's this is my graded thread instead of the forum. And it's, I have 2 cats, and I'm gonna be like, what are their names? That's my feedback to the learner. And I'm gonna click submit, and that means I've graded what I've done here. And this is another student that I added a different user account, and I'm gonna give them a 90. And like I said, I can reply here. This replies directly in public, and this is a private reply. I'm gonna click submit, and this is another, this is just another reply. As you click submit, you're gonna get your other students' replies and stuff. And when you go to your full grade center, my graded form, you can see I could have a grade there. I still need to grade this one, and that's why you're going to see that little exclamation point. But I'm gonna go to the, and then you're gonna see here I have a grade here, but these 2 I have not graded, and that's fine. Like I said, you could just go to the needs grading to see the grades that are here, what still needs to be graded here. So another way that you could also grade things is by going to the individual forum. And at least for this forum, you could click, once you're in there, you could just click on grade discussion forum. And you can see I already graded this first individual. And my previous user has posted 3 times, and I could grade that here. I could do like an 85 for that, and save. And I could go back to my discussion, and let's see, for a graded thread. Graded thread, you can't grade, there's no grading button here, but there'll be a grading button on the thread itself. And I'm gonna click on this one because we have the participants here, and I'm gonna click on their reply, and that's what they had to say. And depending, on your critique of it all, you're gonna give them the grade that they should get. And I'm gonna save. So that's another way that you can grade the items in the discussion board. Either you could click on this individual forums, or you could go straight to the needs grading, and it's just going to switch over to different students once you're done submitting all your grades.